Well, welcome to a new Harry's Garage, and today's car is the Ferrari 550 Maranello. Car I know quite well, having owned a few. Back in 2004 I bought one as a sort of company car when I was running Evo magazine, and then promptly did well over 30,000 miles in just 18 months. Quite an experience. And then I owned one in about I'm trying to think when I bought it, about 2010-ish. I bought a 550 Barchetta, the convertible version, chopped down roof, and I did another 13,000 miles an hour. So together with the press cars and things, I've probably done about 50,000 miles in the 550 Maranello. So I've really got to know it. Anyway, so I'm going to give you a tour around what makes this car a really special Ferrari in the range. Now, you can't help but mention the style. This was a big departure for Ferrari at the time. It's actually, if you look back in the history, this is a Luca Montezemolo car. He arrived at Ferrari in 1991 with a mission to sort out the F1 team and then to think what they do with the road car division. And the first thing he wanted to do is go back to basics. Ferrari had this tradition of front-engined V12 cars. At the time, they were producing the Testarossa, which you see behind this one, and then the 512, etc. That was because there was a link to the F1 cars. They were flat 12 at the time. They were really getting a bit beaten up by Lamborghini. They come out with their Diablo. Did Ferrari follow that? No, Montezemolo said no, we're going back to what Ferrari did best, the Gentleman's Express, the front engine V12 Ferrari. And that's why it was a big departure and a big surprise when this car arrived on the scene in 1996. The big news about the 550 Maranello was it introduced a new engine, the V12, front engine V12, and that is an absolute masterpiece of an engine. I've got the original press brochure and it just looks spectacular with the beautiful exhaust manifolds and a very trick inlet manifold that we'll have a look at in a moment under the bonnet. But that was the big change of this car. There really was a brand new V12. We'd seen it initially in the 456, although that has a slightly different top end. The actual valve arrangement, there's more maintenance needed on those. The 550 introduced hydraulic tappets, no adjustment needed, unlike the 456. So there's less maintenance required in this car. Montezemolo wanted this as a usable Ferrari with long service intervals. So the point just walking around the car, which you can see now, it's quite a long overhang. It's quite a short wheelbase for the length of car. Compared to a Vanquish, it's much shorter wheelbase, even though the overall length is the same. And also they did great things to get unsprung weight down. So they're actually magnesium alloy wheels and drilled ventilated discs and aluminium brake calipers, all in the aid of handling. It's twin wishbones all round. No spoilers as well. There's a sort of flat floor, early days of sort of flat floor aerodynamics going on here because this was a very slippery car. When I owned one, I was really surprised how quick you could get 200 miles an hour on the speedo were you in the right place at the right time. I had a Zonda, Pagani Zonda after this that also had a 200 mile an hour top speed, and that took forever to go from 180 to 200. This thing, very slippery, and went straight through the 200 mile an hour barrier on the speedo. Maybe it was a Ferrari speedo error, I don't know, but it looked good. Okay, let's have a look at the engine. Now I think this is a masterclass of how to display an engine. Beautifully done, the red crackle, the intakes, there's twin intakes here, the red crackle here, the Ferrari emblems, not a plastic cover to be seen anywhere. This is quite a clever induction system. What it does is for maximum torque you have one side which is a longer tract for low speed running, increases the torque, and when you get to higher revs it swaps. If I take this off, there's a row of 12 trumpets in there, it's a shorter intake and you get more horsepower at the top end of the engine. Revs to 7,500 this car, 485 horsepower at 7,000 is its rated horsepower, but it's just beautifully made. If you just step back a bit, some of the details I love on this car, these are all metal, this is beautifully aluminium welded here. And then if you look at this, how they've dressed the engine, they've hidden the wires either side, there's air conditioning that side and wires going underneath, so they put a cover over it. They wanted to make it look really good. This is just the water coolant. Again, it's metal. It's not a plastic water cover as you normally find on a car, but aluminium. And if you go back, this car is dry sumped, and there's a lovely aluminium top for the dry sump, little dipstick. There was no budget on this. This had to be a really good engine, and it is. It really produces the horsepower, but it's also a spectacular engine when you lift the bonnet and look at it. I ought to just mention, if you are in the market for a 550 Maranello, one of the first places I look, they have notorious for rusting along this seam on the top of the bonnet. This car is a 12,500 mile car, beautifully maintained. It's a little tiny bit, but they have a habit of sitting, when you wash the car, water sits in here. It's a bad bit of design and they get corrosion. This car also, I ought to mention, is all aluminium as well. So it's not a true rust, it's aluminium corrosion. Okay, I'll go and look round the back. And one of the things on the Maranello, if you want to open the boot, you normally have to have the ignition on, unless you know there's a little secret flap. If I open the door, under the parcel shelf, little flap here, and there's a manual release for the boot, which is very handy. Just also at the back of this car, something I've always liked about the 550 Maranello, not a badge inside, just Ferrari and then the prancing horse at the back. No sign that this car is called the 550 Maranello. Lift the boot up. It's a bit black in there, I know, but it only goes to there because there's a great big petrol tank on these cars, well over 100 litres. And under there is where you have a little secret cubby hole, beautiful tools, a sort of leather case there, and that's actually some goo to blow your tyre up, if you can. Right, anyway, 550 Maranello, it's all about the driving, so let's take it outside and see what it's like there. It's wonderful getting back in here after quite a while actually, since I last drove one of these. That's the noise that the immobiliser makes. There's a little fob you get with these age of Ferraris. You just press the button, a red light stops flashing in the middle of the dash, and you start up that V12. Now, let's turn that air conditioning down a bit. First thing you notice is how well this is all laid out. It's very simple, the interior to this. This age of car, they get something I always look for now is they go slightly sticky. It's all a bit odd, but some of the controls, the little rocker switches here, fuel and boots and stuff, that's why you have to turn the engine on normally to get it going. Fly off handbrake as well, so you lift it up, release the catch, put it down, and off you go. Yeah, quite mooted. It's not like a modern Ferrari, it doesn't shout. This is a different age of Ferrari. Very nicely laid out, the dials. Got a clock. Let's turn the air conditioning down. Yeah, clock, fuel gauge, you have to watch that a lot. Unfortunately, it's quite a big tank. Oil temperature. Water temperature down here. Speedo goes to 210 miles an hour, which we like a lot. I'd see this car has done a mere 12,500 miles, 12,600 to be exact. Quite amazing. Rev counter, peak revs, red line starts at 7,500, and then oil pressure in the corner. Lovely, easy to use ventilation right across the dash, 5 big outlets all the way across, and of course the most wonderful gear change, gated change, very nice quality change as well. After the Testarossa that did this funny link all the way back to the gearbox sitting at the back of the flat 12, this one links easier to the gearbox. Yes, it's a transaxle gearbox sits in the back, but it's a straight through on the rods to it, and it actually makes it a very nice change. And conventional patterns, so each pattern, if you like, that reverse isn't opposite first, it's off to the usual place over to the left. You could get carbon trim on 550s. All Barchettas came with carbon trim, but around the gauges they're all done in carbon. You get a carbon gear knob as well. but yeah, I do like this. Some complain it gets a little hot in the sun. Well, that's a first world problem. I think it's absolutely fine. Weirdly, left hand and right hand drive differ slightly on this tunnel because you get a funny sort of pen holder on left hand drive cars, but you don't get it on right hand drive cars. Don't know why. What else have we got? Controls for the mirror, hazard flashers, parking lights if you're parking up at night, and of course the ashtray. Still essential equipment in 1996 apparently. And yeah, a little place to put your iPhone. They're obviously advanced at Ferrari. They knew the iPhone was coming out, but there's a perfect little thing on the central console to keep your iPhone in. But even now I can feel that torque of that engine. It's 5.5 litre engine. It just feels quicker already than the Testarossa. Different feel, just usability right up the scale compared to Testarossa. Better visibility out. Low bonnet as well. This was the last age of car when the dreaded pedestrian legislation hadn't come in. Now you have to have this gap between the engine and the top of your bonnet. If I open the bonnet on here, you can actually see the top of the engine is actually making a mark on the insulation on the top of the bonnet. They went dry sump, they got that bonnet line as low as possible, and that's why I've got great visibility out, and why it looks so wonderful from the front, that super low nose. By the time the 599 came along, you had to have this airspace between the engine and the bonnet, so if a pedestrian decides to headbutt your bonnet as you're hitting him, he doesn't hurt his head quite so badly because there isn't a hard object underneath the bonnet. God dear, how many people does that say? But what's it done to car design? It's ruined it really, because it's made it so bulbous at the front, and that's the reason why. Anyway, I digress. Great visibility out after the Testarossa as well. The front engine layout means, yeah, I've got a big windscreen, side screens on. It's very easy to place on the road. It's quite big, this car. It's wide and it has a long nose. I remember when I was parking it, I was always surprised when I sort of hit the front of the garage. So, it was always sooner than I expected. So be very gentle when you're parking one of these. But yeah, it's just the usability of the thing. That was the shock when this car arrived. Montezemolo's idea was guys who owned a 550 Maranello were going to use their cars. That was top of the list, hence the big service intervals. And also there's none of this nonsense of the engine coming out when you need to change the cam belts. On this car, you get to them on the front of the engine. It's a £400 bolt on to a regular service. Regular service I found in my day was about £1,800. So that was annual service really, 18,000 miles I think, no, 12,500 miles it was. Though I didn't do it fairly regularly. What was a cost though was tyres. I had no idea the car could eat tyres like the Maranello can. I used to get through a set of tyres every 6,000 miles when I owned mine. There was no track days involved. That's just a regular commute to Evo's office and back. 6,000 miles. I was doing about 1,800 miles a month, so that was around every 14 weeks. New set, new boost. The rears were bald, and the fronts used to wear badly on the inside of the tyre. If you're buying a 550 Maranello, always check the inside of the tyre. That's where it wears, not on the outside in regular running. Nothing to do with geometry. Geometry was spot on. It just eats tyres. And I worked out it was actually 15 pence a mile to Mr. Ferrari when I ran the 550. Much more than any other car I'd run at the time. One of the reasons why it uses tyres, I suppose, is that grunt, this torque from down below. If I just turn ASR off, which is the traction control, something happens. Yes, it has little traction at the rear. It might be all gentlemanly, but there's a lot of horsepower there, ready to be released at any moment. And what's lovely on this particular car, this car has the Ferrari pack, and I can It's a little stiffer than a regular setup, but it's not stiff by today's standards, and it's a very nice pack. If you find a car with Ferrari on your 550, it's well worth having. Slightly stiffer springs, but it's the anti-roll bars, a beefier one at the back as well. Makes quite a difference. I should say I wouldn't bother with it with the Barchetta, because the Barchetta is quite a twisty platform. It's not a very structurally strong car. It twists, so you can't really bolt more aggressive suspension to it because you just can't handle it. They were quite proud of the torsional rigidity of this car when it was new. It was about 14,500 Newton meters per degree of movement of the body structure. Basically, you bolt the body onto this rig and hang weight off a corner and see how much weight you have to bolt on to move the body by a degree. 14,500 Newton meters in the case of this one. That's a surprise. Yes, it does. You don't actually hit, I mean, we're hit the bottom there, but what it is an under tray. It's that flat floor. It's made of plastic, and it's the first thing that touches. They sort of bow over time, so you have to bolt it on and off every time you service the car. It's a bit of a pain. And there's a car coming. I think we're just playing roulette. So who's got a parking space? There's one up there. There we go. Thank you. So yes, it's not actually doing any damage underneath. On to one of my favourite bits of road, just up here. We'll just see what it's like when you just wind it up a bit more. It's a good noise, but it's muted, isn't it? It's not what you expect from Ferrari nowadays. This was a different age of Ferrari. Got a sports button on the dash. Now that one, all it actually does, there's a Cayman. See one of those around here for a while. Yeah, what that does is tighten the dampers up. They're adjustable dampers. They have a little motor on top of them, and the little motor switches from position 1 to position 2. Those motors fail. That's quite often why you get a warning on the dash. It's quite firm, this Ferrari pack, and on the Sport. It does feel good. Well, it's a really surprising engine. It's a star turn of this car, the engine, because it gets this second wind. As you get up around the 6,000 RPM mark to 7, it really gets to going. And it's because of that clever valving in the inlet manifold that swaps that short stage. And it also valves the exhaust as well, because they were playing with the back pressure of the exhaust. And if you drive a 550 that's on tubing exhaust or a different, any aftermarket hasn't got that valving that's built into the ECU. I found them a little flat on the torque. They make a better sound, but the performance, in my experience, suffers. The standard car, yes, it's a bit muted, but God, does it have some low down grunt, and then this extra bite at the top end. Hides its bulk. This car is just under 1,700 kilos, 1,690 something. Quite heavy, heavier than Testarossa was, even with its aluminium construction. But the engine disguises 100 horsepower more than the Testarossa, and it has this wallop of torque. And the other thing it's got on its side is quick steering. This was the first of the Ferraris with the quick steering. It had power steering in it that allowed them to really up the gearing on the steering. This is just over 2 turns lock to lock, so I'm going to this barrel into these corners and I'm hardly having to put any lock on, and it just helps disguise the weight of this car. It's not what I'm feeling, that enormous weight when I'm sat here. Very nice. Funny enough, on a Ferrari pack on this car with Sport selected, it's almost too firm for this B-rank. Just tramlined slightly. They were a little prone to it because of the quick steering, a little bit of negative on the front. Check the tyres and they're reasonable condition on this car, but just, yeah, this is so deja vu. This was my commute to and from the office of Evo, and I took the 550 down here nearly every morning and back in the evening. And I just used to look forward to it. Whatever was happening in the day, it always started well and ended well if I was in the 550. Just great. Just a surprise. Not what you expect with this front engine Ferrari to behave like. It was, in its day, we didn't know about 599 and where they took it on from this car. This, after test off mid-engine Ferraris, and compared to cars like the Diablo, this was so usable. This, this promise of this Ferrari's wonderful engine that revved and all the torque, just great. So I'm going to show you a little trick the Maranello can do. I'm in 4th gear and I'm at tick-over, so feet are off the pedal, so that's absolutely a tick-over. I can give it full throttle. This just shows the elasticity of this engine. Here we go, full throttle, 1000 RPM. Here we go, 30, 40, 50, 60, and so it goes on. There is immense torque at the bottom end of this engine, much better than Testarossa, and really was quite remarkable in its day when it came out. So you're probably wondering, if I've got Testarossa and I'm utilising over this car, why there isn't one in the garage now? Well, having lived with it, I think I lived at it at the peak when I needed a everyday usable Ferrari. The 550 fitted the bill perfectly. Apart from the 16.8 mpg average, I averaged over 31,000 miles. That took a bit of painful, but everything else was great about it. I used it right through the winter, had the most perfect heater, etc. But now I want cars that, are really special. So they want me, I want to use the keys, I want to go out. I sort of don't want the usability that this car offers. I want something extra special, and I find with the Testarossa, the flat 12 engine that just sounds ace. It's one of the best sounding Ferraris ever. It has enough usability that I don't hesitate to go on big trips with it. And it's a manual, it's not as nice a change as this, but the Testarossa just is a little bit more exciting somehow, weird as it may seem. This delivers the speed, the usability, but for someone in the garage, I go for the Testarossa. Now that's just me. If you want a classic Ferrari that isn't quite classic but isn't as modern and sort of sits in its hinterland, then the 550 is for you. The last standard manual V12 front engine Ferrari, that is something to celebrate, and it's a lovely change, really nicely sorted, 6-speed, usable car. That's what makes it special. The quick steering, the looks, it's got all that on its side, and I can see why they've really become popular today, and they've sort of gone up in value. 575 after it didn't look quite as pretty. The F1 gearbox was a bit of a nightmare because it had a long transmission, it was pregnant pauses, and the manuals have really taken off on value. 550, you're not shortchanged from manual 550 obviously to a 575 manual. Yes, it's a bit gruntier, that engine, but it's not quite as pretty. It's not quite as pretty inside either. Oh, I ought to mention the seats. Seats are absolutely ace. I've done big long distances, trips to Italy and back in it. The standard seats, all electric, are ace. No downsides, fantastic grip, very adjustable. Sport seats are pretty good, but you don't really wriggle them. Standard seats are ace. So there you go. That's my experience of 550 Maranello. I hope it's giving you a little insight into this car, what makes it a special car. If you have enjoyed the video, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming along very soon.